All right, guys, today we need to talk more about the fever case. This is perhaps the most interesting and exciting item that has been added to CS2. Obviously, I know when the Armory stuff first dropped, that was really crazy. I know a lot of people got excited about the Desert Eagle Heat Treated or Charms or whatever, but to me, the fever case is on a whole nother level. One of the most crazy items we've had added to Counter-Strike ever in a long time, whatever, but there is still a very, very big issue going on with it that is actually causing it to be one of the best cases of all time. So we need to talk about that in this video today, and perhaps also how this is, can or should impact your investing or purchasing decisions as well. But of course, first, just want to mention my cash trading business. If you guys are looking to sell any of your CS2 items, turn them into cold hard cash, crypto, or any other payment method, definitely hit me up over on Twitter. It's going to be the first link in the description below, and you know what the deal is. We like to get those big deals done. So if you have any expensive skins, knives, gloves, bulk cases, maybe you won't even sell your entire inventory, hit me up. I would love to help you cash out safely, effectively, and efficiently. And by selling to me, you're helping support me, my channel, and my content so we can make more videos like this one. With that being said, let's get right into this video today. So this all started obviously on March 31st of 2025. CS2 tweeted out this banana for scale, and we got some new content for the first time in like 6 or 7 months. We got the fever case, we got the Train 2025 collection, and people started ripping into these fever cases right away. And if you're like me, you might have noticed on Twitter, Reddit, Discord, all over the place, people were posting a ton of clips of them getting some pretty insane pulls. Obviously, we have the Shattered Web Knives and Chroma finishes, which are just sick by themselves. You know, if you ever pull a Doppler skeleton knife, you're going to be sharing it all over the place. But the clips just seem to be coming in a little bit too fast. People realize that, hey, everybody and their mother was getting a sapphire skeleton or a ruby skeleton or just a phase 2 skeleton or whatever. These things were getting pulled at an absolutely insane rate. Now, yes, they were getting opened at a crazy rate, and people had saved up a ton of stars and they were redeeming them all instantly and trying to open them up as fast as they could, but still, something really wasn't adding up. Something wasn't making a ton of sense. So in reply to Counter-Strike 2, Hobshy replies, "We appreciate the update, but I think you made a mistake with the knives. The odds to get Ruby Sapphire seem way too high in comparison to other Doppler finishes. Also, looking down at your legs and spinning is very broken. Please patch." Pretty funny. And I made a video about this at the time because this was a really, really huge deal because Counter-Strike actually responded. They said, "You're right. When we released the fever case, there was a bug with the frequency at which different paint finishes were applied to knives. This has since been fixed." Now, when I made the video covering this, it was like, hey, this is a very, very big nerf to the fever case. The fever case on release was absolutely insane, and if you had an opportunity to, you know, get a Doppler crazy knife right off the bat, you made a lot of money. I mean, skeleton rubies were selling for $10,000 at the time. I haven't looked at the prices recently, but I assume the price have come down a little bit. But again, we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that people were able to pull right off the bat. And then if Valve is going to nerf them, that's going to help the price of those knives in the long term. You know, if these knives are just really super common, the price is going to come down over time. But if you were able to get a knife more easily than other people, and then the rarity gets buffed, your knife is actually going to stay up in value decently. So yeah, some people got $3, $4, $5, $10,000 knives on that first couple days of this case being out. But people were mad at Hopshi because they were like, hey, this is a teacher's pet ass comment. Why did you tell the teacher on us? Why did you expose that we had this amazing case that was dropping us all these great knives? Because there's so many people out there who, you know, might not ever be able to afford a $10,000 skeleton ruby, but if they have increased odds of opening them, you know, they might be able to get it that way, or it's just going to bring the prices down because these things are going to be more common and people might get some really cool knives at a cheaper price. Now, there was also a ton of people out there that were speculating like, hey, maybe Valve did this on purpose. Maybe Valve just wants these things to be more common. Maybe Valve wants knives to be cheaper. I know some people are like, oh, Valve wants all items to be under $2,000 so they sell in the Steam community market and they can collect their tax and blah, 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 whatever. But this was a big deal. It seemed like the fever case was getting nerfed. It seemed like, you know, those knives were going to remain really, really sky high in prices, whatever. But then we get an update. Hopshi returns a couple of days later, and this is the update that we need to talk about. This is the big deal. Not looking too fixed, boss man. Looks like you upped the odds of Tiger Tooth, Marble Fade, Ultraviolet, Rusco, and Vanilla, when Vanilla shouldn't even be in this case, which is also a little bit absurd and hilarious, whatever. But Rubies, Black Pearls, and Sapphires are still being unboxed at the same rate as Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, again, we have this from Morocco. He says, still lots of gems getting registered on CS Float. White number equals total supply. Green number is the amount registered in the last 24 hours. And this is on April 11th. This was way after, you know, Counter-Strike claims to have fixed the case or fixed update or whatever. And you can see that in the past 24 hours, Phase 1s, there was 12. Phase 2s, there was 8. Phase 3, 8. Phase 4, there was 9. I don't even know the difference between the phases and the sapphire at this point, whatever. They all look the same to me. But 6 black pearls, 7 rubies, 7 sapphires. You can see that all of these numbers are about the same. Now, this is really, really interesting because when people first saw, some people, when they first saw this tweet from Counter-Strike, they can see that these people aren't even saying the same thing. Habshai is saying, hey, people are getting rubies and sapphires way too high in comparison to other Doppler finishes, and Counter-Strike says there was a bug with the frequency at which different paint finishes were being applied to knives, and some people were saying, oh, that sounds like Counter-Strike is saying they're just going to make the other knives drop more often, when Habshi is saying you should make the rubies and sapphires more rare relative to the Dopplers. So people were like, oh, this doesn't really make sense. Is Counter-Strike still going to make the rubies, sapphires, and black pearls just as common as the other knives? And it seems like that's exactly what they did. Now, that is very, very interesting. Now, this is not the first time that a case has ever been changed or have different odds or been broken or whatever. If we go back and look at some of the other cases that have Doppler knives in them, you have the chroma cases where you have about a 5% chance of getting a gem. Of all the Dopplers, about 5% of them are going to be gems. But then you have these spectrum cases and the prisma cases, which are vastly different. A much higher percent chance of pulling gems at 19, about 20% of the Dopplers that you pull from a spectrum or a prisma are going to be gems. And obviously a gem is a ruby, a sapphire, or a black pearl. So that is a absolutely massive difference. And yeah, that's going to make, your chances of getting something really crazy from the spectra case to the prisma case a lot better. But it's also going to make those knives from the chroma cases a lot more expensive, because they're going to be a lot less common. They're going to be much more rare, and it's interesting. And there's good and bad about both. But again, did Valve do this intentionally? Did they do this unintentionally? Why are they changing this stuff up so much? And again, it seems like with the Fever case, once again, they have changed it, and they have made it even different. Once again, they have made it better than the Spectrum case, better than the Prisma case, more likely to get a Doppler gem from these cases, which is really, really crazy. And again, that is leading, some people to say stuff like this. I see no problem with this. Just because it was like this before does not mean that it should always be like that. Skins are skins. They're not something you should call a proper investment. Now, I don't know what this necessarily has to do with investing, because I think part of the debate is like, hey, should gems be as common as phases? Should Valve be trying to make gems more cheap and more affordable? Now, obviously, on the other end, I would argue, hey, if gems become more common, they're going to be less cool. You could say, hey, no, gems look amazing no matter what, but time and time again that we see, value does definitely lead to how good or bad something looks. And also, if you see more and more people having something, if it becomes more and more common, it's going to become less attractive. So I know there's people out there who are like, oh, if we just need to make this stuff more affordable, then it'll be so cool. But like, as it becomes more affordable, you might not believe it, but I promise it actually becomes less cool if it becomes more common, more affordable, stuff like that. That's just how things work. Part of the allure of all the other gems out there and all that stuff is partly how good they look, but partly how they're a collector's item and they're expensive and they're whatever. And that has really nothing to do with investing. And honestly, a lot of these aren't even that great of investment. So this person I don't think is necessarily the most informed or educated on stuff like this. People just want to like get mad and say random stuff, but whatever. But yeah, I think that is ultimately pretty interesting at the end of the day. We have people, this was crazy because at the time, X Mercy was saying, hey, if you farmed an easy Sapphire, Ruby, or Black Pearl, the party is now over. Those had the same odds as normal phases, lucky MFs. But again, it seems like those still have the same odds as phases. Now, you are, in the Fever case right now, you are now less likely overall to get a Doppler, but once you are in that Doppler category, it seems like you are just as likely to get a Ruby, Sapphire, and Black Pearl as any of those other phases. So there will be more of those created out there. So yes, there still was a nerf where I guess in a way you're less likely to get a Sapphire, Ruby, or Black Pearl, but it's not in comparison to the other phases, and it's not as rare as it necessarily used to be or should be. So did Valve, again, now Valve realized there was it's crazy because, again, some people are saying, oh, Valve was doing this on purpose from the beginning. But then Valve even acknowledged that there was an error. There was a mistake, but then they fixed it. So did they fix it correctly, or did they make another mistake? There's some people being like, oh, see, they fixed it. So this is what they meant to do. But if they made a mistake originally, if they made a mistake in the first place, is it not possible they made a mistake once again? I don't know. And why or how is Valve even making so many mistakes with all these different things going on? Because, again, this is not the first time they've ever released Doppler finishes. Is a lot of it not just copy and paste or redoing the same numbers or redoing the same data points or whatever? I don't know. Why is it so hard for them to get these things down unless they're doing it on purpose, which is also very, very possible. I don't know. But obviously with these current drop rates, it does make the Fever case extremely attractive. It does make the Fever case potentially one of the best cases of all time. And that's also something that X Mercy said. He said the Fever case is putting on quite a show on the Steam community market. It started at $1, shot up to $3.87, dropped back down to $1.10, and is now back to $2.15. It's been all over the place. What a roller coaster ride. To me, this is easily the #1 case ever released in CS. And again, part of that has to do with the print stream, a very, very good red in this case. And there's even some good pinks, and there's even some pretty good skins throughout this whole thing. Obviously, the other part of it has to do with knives and knife finishes that we've been waiting for a long time. And part of this also has to do with the increased drop rate of some very, very good things. You know, the easiest way in the game right now to get a Ruby, Sapphire, Black, Pearl is going to be from the Fever case. That's if Valve doesn't make another change to this again. Now, if it does stay this way again, I do think that could potentially hurt, obviously, the prices of Ruby Sapphires and Black Pearls from the Fever case, but also Ruby Sapphires and Black Pearls from other weapons as well. I don't think it'll make them crash or go down or anything like that, but it could definitely hurt the future gains. It could definitely make them appreciate in price less quickly because gems will become more common and easier to get, and there's going to be more competition for gems out there. And again, if these gems do end up being a little bit cheaper, you are just going to be able to go get other stuff for cheaper rather than spending more money on some of those previous gems that were, you know, skyrocketing, going sky high in prices or whatever. But this will be very, very interesting. Obviously, we're going to have to wait and see exactly what happens here. But yes, this is definitely one of the most crazy cases of all time. I was going to check to see if we could see the ROI of this thing right now. Unboxing ROI only around 70%, but that's at $244. That's if you buy it for the Steam price. Obviously, if you were getting these things for 80 cents from your like Armory passes or whatever, these things are insanely profitable to be unboxing. So that's definitely one thing to watch out for and keep in mind. And then, yeah, I mean, the unboxing numbers, I'm sure, are absolutely insane right now. The unboxing numbers are probably crazy. People are really hyped up and excited about this thing. There's an all-time high number of people playing CS right now, so I would assume, you know, these things are getting dropped in crazy and created in crazy, but also opened up in crazy. So I'm really curious to see where the price of this thing's going to go over the next like 6 months or however long this thing stays in the Armory. But then also seeing if this ends up being one of the best case investments of all time as well, because even though it's an amazing case, it's still being artificially kept down by being able to get it from 80 cents out of the Armory. So this is definitely something to keep an eye on. But I'm also curious if Valve is ever going to change the drop rates of this thing again, because again, what Hobshy was saying that they should fix, they said they fixed, but they actually fixed something different. So it's this whole crazy thing. But this case is still broken, and the brokenness, or maybe they did it on purpose or whatever, is causing it to be one of the best cases of all time. I just want to give you guys the update on that. Pretty much it was the video today. Hope I catch you guys in the next one. Until then, peace.